Welcome to Sport Ethics. Today we begin Chapter 1, Ethical Concepts in Sport. Before we start, I want you to think about one important question. What makes sport fair? Most people think about rules, referees, or penalties, but ethics in sport goes beyond simply following the rules. Ethics involves fairness, honesty, respect, integrity, and responsibility. In modern sports, athletes, coaches, managers, and organizations face difficult ethical decisions every day. For example, should injured athletes continue playing? Is trash talking acceptable? Should athletes use performance enhancing drugs if it helps them win? As sport management majors, many of you may become future coaches, athletic directors, marketers, event managers, or administrators. So, understanding ethics will be very important in your professional careers. This course is not only about understanding what is legal in sport, but also about understanding what is right. Throughout this semester, we will discuss real ethical issues from professional sports, college athletics, youth sports, and esports. My goal is for you to think critically, communicate respectfully, and develop ethical decision making skills as future sport professionals. Today, we begin by learning the basic ethical concepts that shape the world of sport. Sports play a very important role in society and in everyday life around the world. People from different countries, cultures, and backgrounds are connected through sports. Events such as the Olympic Games, the FIFA World Cup, and the Super Bowl bring millions of people together and create a shared global sports culture. Sports are not only about competition and entertainment, but they also teach important life lessons such as teamwork, discipline, leadership, communication, and perseverance. At the same time, sports can create new ethical challenges involving fairness, cheating, violence, discrimination, and player safety. Because sports have such a strong influence on society, it is important for sport managers, athletes, coaches, and organizations to understand ethical behavior and social responsibility in the sports industry. Another important concept in sport ethics is understanding that sports are part of society. This slide explains that sports are considered social constructions. In simple terms, this means sports are created and shaped by people and by society over time. Sports do not exist separately from society. Instead, they reflect the social, political, economic, and cultural values of the people who participate in them. For example, the way people view gender equality, race, nationalism, money, or violence can influence how sports are organized and played. The popularity of certain sports can also vary depending on culture and history. Soccer is the world's most popular sport globally, while American football is more dominant in the United States. This shows how society helps shape sports. At the same time, sports can also influence society by affecting culture, identity, and social change. Because sports are social constructions, ethical issues in sport often change as society changes. What was considered acceptable in sports many years ago may now be viewed as unethical today. Now let's look at the definition of ethics. Ethics can be described as the practice of making principled choices between right and wrong. In other words, ethics helps people decide what they should or should not do in certain situations. Ethics also involves reflecting on our moral beliefs and behaviors. This means thinking carefully about whether our actions are fair, honest, respectful, and responsible. In sports, ethical decisions happen every day. For example, athletes may decide whether to cheat or play fairly, coaches may decide whether to prioritize winning or player safety, and sport organizations may decide whether to focus more on profit or social responsibility. Ethics is important because many situations in sports do not have simple answers. Something may be legal according to the rules, but still considered unethical by society. As future sport management professionals, understanding ethics will help you make responsible decisions, build trust, and create a positive sport environment. Now, let's discuss why studying sport ethics is important for sport management majors. Ethics is especially important because sport managers and leaders influence the behavior and culture of athletes, teams, employees, and organizations. The decisions made by sport executives can affect player safety, team reputation, fan trust, and even the integrity of an entire league. For example, managers may face difficult situations involving cheating, recruiting violations, discrimination, gambling, or financial pressure to win. Because of these challenges, sport professionals need a strong understanding of ethical decision making. Sport executives must learn how to make decisions honestly, professionally, and responsibly, even when facing pressure from fans, sponsors, media, or ownership groups. Ethical leadership helps create fairness, trust, and long term success within sport organizations. As future sport management professionals, studying ethics will help you become better leaders and better decision makers in the sports industry. Now, let's look at one of the most basic and well known ethical models called the Golden Rule. The Golden Rule exists in many religions, cultures, and ethical traditions around the world. The idea is very simple: treat others the way you would want to be treated. In sports, this means showing fairness, honesty, respect, and empathy toward teammates, opponents, coaches, officials, and fans. For example, if you would not want another team to cheat against you, then you should not cheat against them. If you would not want someone to disrespect you or intentionally injure you, then you should not do those actions to others. The Golden Rule also applies to sport management and leadership. Managers should not take advantage of athletes, employees, or fans because they would not want others doing that to them. Even in difficult situations, the Golden Rule can help people decide whether an action is ethical or unethical. Although ethical decisions are sometimes complex, asking yourself, would I want to be treated this way, is often a helpful starting point for making responsible decisions in sports. Next, let's look at three major ethical theories that help people understand and evaluate ethical behavior. The first is metaethics. Metaethics focuses on understanding the meaning of ethics itself. It asks deeper questions such as, what does right or wrong actually mean? Are ethical values universal, or do they depend on culture and personal beliefs? The second is normative ethics. Normative ethics focuses on developing rules and standards for ethical behavior. In other words, it asks, what should people do? This area of ethics helps guide behavior by creating principles such as fairness, honesty, justice, and responsibility. The third is applied ethics. Applied ethics takes ethical theories and applies them to real world situations. In sports, applied ethics examines issues such as performance enhancing drugs, gambling, violence, discrimination, athlete rights, and player safety. As sport management professionals, you will mostly work with applied ethics because you will need to make real decisions in real situations involving athletes, organizations, fans, and society. Understanding these ethical theories helps create a stronger foundation for responsible leadership and decision making in sports. Now let's look more closely at metaethics. Metaethics focuses on very deep philosophical questions about the nature of ethics itself. Instead of asking what should we do, metaethics asks questions such as what does morality actually mean, or where do ethical values come from? This area of ethics tries to understand the foundation of moral beliefs and ethical systems. For example, some people believe morality comes from religion or the will of God, while others believe morality can exist through human reasoning, culture, or social agreement even without religion. The slide provides examples of these kinds of philosophical questions, such as what is the connection between morality and religion? If God exists, is God's will the basis of morality? Can morality exist without religion or belief in God? These questions often do not have one simple answer, but they help people think critically about ethics and moral beliefs. In sport ethics, understanding meta-ethics helps us realize that different people, cultures, and societies may view ethical issues differently based on their values and beliefs. Next, let's discuss normative ethics. Normative ethics focuses on determining what actions are right or wrong and what behaviors are considered good or bad. Unlike meta-ethics, which asks philosophical questions about morality itself, normative ethics tries to create standards or guidelines for ethical behavior. It also examines what makes a person virtuous or unethical. In sports, normative ethics helps guide decisions about fairness, honesty, respect, responsibility, and sportsmanship. For example, should athletes always follow the rules even if cheating could help them win? Should coaches prioritize player safety over victory? These are questions connected to normative ethics. The example on the slide explains that some ethical theories judge actions based on consequences. In other words, an action may be considered right if it creates the best outcome or consequences. However, different ethical theories may define best consequences differently. In sport management, normative ethics is important because it helps leaders develop ethical standards and make responsible decisions that positively affect athletes, teams, fans, and organizations. Finally, let's discuss applied ethics. Applied ethics focuses on using ethical theories to answer difficult moral questions that people face in real life. Unlike meta-ethics or normative ethics, applied ethics deals with practical situations and real-world decisions. The slide gives examples of controversial social issues such as abortion and the death penalty, which people often debate from different ethical perspectives. In sports, applied ethics involves issues such as performance enhancing drugs, gambling, athlete protests, player safety, discrimination, violence, and fairness in competition. For example, should an injured athlete be allowed to continue playing if it risks long term health problems? Should college athletes be paid? Should teams punish athletes for inappropriate behavior outside of sports? These are examples of applied ethics in the sports industry. Applied ethics is especially important for sport management professionals because many decisions in sports involve balancing fairness, business interests, player welfare, public image, and organizational responsibility. As future leaders in sports, you will often face situations where there is no perfect answer, and applied ethics helps guide thoughtful and responsible decision making. Now let's discuss cheating in sports. Cheating means acting dishonestly or unfairly in order to gain an advantage over others. In sports, cheating usually involves deception, fraud, or breaking rules to improve performance or increase the chances of winning. Cheating is considered unethical because it violates the principles of fairness, honesty, and equal competition that sports are supposed to represent. The slide provides several examples of cheating in sports. One example is using illegal or banned substances, such as performance enhancing drugs, to improve strength, speed, or endurance. Another example is using illegal equipment that gives athletes an unfair advantage. Match fixing is another serious form of cheating where players, coaches, or officials intentionally manipulate the outcome of a game, often connected to gambling or financial gain. Cheating damages trust among athletes, fans, organizations, and society. it can also harm the integrity and reputation of an entire sport. As future sport management professionals, understanding cheating and maintaining ethical standards will be important responsibilities in protecting fairness and credibility in sports. People cheat in sports for many different reasons, and understanding those reasons is important in sport ethics. One of the biggest questions in sport ethics is understanding the motivation behind unethical behavior. In many cases, people cheat because they feel pressure to succeed, win, or gain rewards. Sometimes prizes, money, scholarships, contracts, or fame can cause athletes and organizations to make poor ethical decisions. In highly competitive environments, winning can become more important than fairness or integrity. This creates a winning at all costs mentality where athletes or teams may believe cheating is acceptable if it helps them succeed. Athletes may also experience pressure from coaches, parents, teammates, fans, or even themselves to perform at a high level. For young athletes, especially, constant pressure to be the best can sometimes encourage unethical behavior. Another problem is when sports organizations focus too much on results and not enough on sportsmanship, teamwork, and character development. When ethical values are not emphasized, cheating may become easier to justify. As future sport management professionals, it is important to create a culture that values integrity, respect, and fair play instead of only focusing on winning. Sport ethics and business ethics share many similarities because both involve working with people, organizations, and decision making responsibilities. In both sports and business environments, leaders must consider how their actions affect employees, customers, clients, athletes, fans, and the community. Ethical behavior is important because organizations depend on trust, reputation, and positive relationships with others. Both sport ethics and business ethics emphasize common values such as honesty, fairness, respect, responsibility, and concern for the well being of others. For example, treating people with dignity, communicating honestly, and avoiding exploitation are important principles in both fields. The idea of treating others the way you want to be treated, which connects to the Golden Rule, is also a major ethical principle in sports and business. In sport management, especially, sports are also businesses, so professionals must balance competitive success with ethical responsibility. Because of this connection, sport managers need to understand both sport ethics and business ethics in order to lead organizations professionally and responsibly. Although sport ethics and business ethics share many similarities, there are also important differences between them. Sport ethics focuses on ethical issues directly connected to sports participation, competition, and athletic behavior, while business ethics mainly focuses on conducting business activities responsibly and professionally. In sports, ethical concerns often involve fairness in competition, sportsmanship, cheating, violence, player safety, and respect for opponents and officials. These issues are unique because they are connected to the actual activity of sports and the behavior of participants during competition. Business ethics, on the other hand, is usually more focused on areas such as employee relations, customer service, financial honesty, and corporate responsibility. One major difference is that sport ethics applies not only to organizations and business operations, but also to athletes, coaches, referees, and the spirit of the game itself. Because sports involve competition, emotions, teamwork, and public influence, ethical decisions in sports can sometimes become more visible and emotionally significant than in other business settings. For sport management professionals, understanding these differences is important because they must manage both the business side of sports and the ethical responsibilities connected to athletic competition. The 6 pillars of ethical decision making provide a foundation for ethical behavior in sports and leadership. The first pillar is trustworthiness, which means being honest, reliable, and keeping promises. Athletes, coaches, and sport managers must build trust with teammates, fans, and organizations. The second pillar is respect. Respect involves treating others with dignity, valuing different perspectives, and showing sportsmanship toward opponents, officials, and teammates. The third pillar is responsibility, which means being accountable for your actions and making thoughtful decisions even under pressure. The fourth pillar is fairness. Fairness involves following rules, avoiding favoritism, and providing equal opportunities in competition and leadership. The fifth pillar is caring, which means showing concern for the well being of others and considering how decisions affect athletes, employees, and communities. The final pillar is citizenship. Citizenship refers to contributing positively to society, obeying laws and rules, and representing organizations responsibly. Together, these 6 pillars help sport professionals make ethical decisions and create a positive sport culture based on integrity, respect, and responsibility. Two of the most important pillars of ethical decision making in sports are trustworthiness and respect. Trustworthiness means pursuing victory with honesty and integrity rather than through cheating or dishonorable behavior. Athletes, coaches, and sport organizations should follow both the written rules and the spirit of the game. Ethical sport leaders should never tolerate dishonesty, fraud, or unfair advantages because trust is essential in competition and leadership. Fans, teammates, and organizations depend on people acting honestly and responsibly. Respect is another important ethical value in sports. Respect means treating teammates, opponents, officials, coaches, and the traditions of the sport with dignity. Respect also involves showing good sportsmanship by winning with humility and losing with dignity. In competitive sports, emotions can become intense, but ethical participants still demonstrate self control and consideration for others. Together, trustworthiness and respect help create fairness, integrity, and positive relationships within sports. Responsibility and fairness are two essential pillars of ethical decision making in sports. Responsibility means being accountable for your actions both on and off the field. Athletes, coaches, and sport leaders are often viewed as role models, so their behavior can influence teammates, fans, and young athletes. Responsibility also includes protecting your own health and making informed decisions. For example, just because a substance is legal or advertised as natural does not mean it is safe or permitted in sports competition. Athletes must understand what they are putting into their bodies and consider the long term effects on their health and careers. Fairness is another key ethical principle in sports. Fairness means following the rules, respecting equal opportunities, and competing honestly. Ethical participants should never seek unfair advantages through cheating, illegal equipment, or dishonest behavior. Fair play is one of the core values of sports because competition only has meaning when everyone follows the same standards and rules. Together, responsibility and fairness help create safe, respectful, and trustworthy sport environments. Caring and citizenship are also important parts of ethical decision making in sports. Caring means showing concern for other people and supporting the well being of teammates, opponents, and the larger sport community. In sports, caring can be demonstrated by encouraging teammates, helping others improve, and promoting healthy choices both physically and mentally. Ethical athletes and leaders understand that success is not only about individual achievement, but also about supporting the team and creating a positive environment for others. Citizenship focuses on being a responsible member of the sport community and society. Good citizenship means following the rules, respecting laws and regulations, and understanding how personal actions can affect others. Athletes and sport professionals should take pride in their performance while still competing honestly and respectfully. Citizenship also reminds people that their behavior on and off the field can influence fans, young athletes, and the public. Together, caring and citizenship help create a positive sport culture built on teamwork, responsibility, and respect for the community. In conclusion, ethics plays a very important role in sports and sport management. Throughout this chapter, we learn that sports are more than games and entertainment because they strongly influence society, culture, and human behavior. Ethical decision making helps athletes, coaches, managers, and organizations act with honesty, fairness, responsibility, and respect. We also explored different ethical theories, the causes of cheating in sports, and the similarities and differences between sport ethics and business ethics. Most importantly, the six pillars of ethical decision making remind us that trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship are essential values in sports leadership. As future sport management professionals, understanding ethics will help you make responsible decisions, build positive relationships, and create a fair and respectful sport environment. Ethical leadership is not only about winning games or making profits, but also about protecting integrity and doing what is right.